The first tool I'd like to show you is a simple sheet metal folder. As you can see, it comprises of two pieces of angle iron with strong hinges at each end. These need to be substantial as they take all the forces involved. Bolted to one piece of angle iron is a clamp bar held down by two bolts. This limits the capacity of the width of the fold, and in this case is something in the region of about 14 inches. This can, with very little effort, fold up to 1/8 of an inch plate. I'll demonstrate by a piece of just off-cut thin sheet placed under the clamp bar to wherever the line you've marked, and I'll just tighten this down by hand as this is very, very thin. And the handle is raised. The handle is raised to whatever angle you want. In this case, I'll guess 90 degrees. So there's a 90-degree bend. No, not quite, a bit more. There's a 90-degree bend. And as you can see, the results are really sharp. I can recommend making something like this. It saves a lot of effort, and you won't get those sort of results by placing it in the vise and hitting it with a hammer. The next item I'd like to show is a small spot welder I made. I made this about 2 years ago from scraps around the workshop. The main transformer comes from a microwave oven, the secondary being stripped down and rewound to provide the current. It's operated by a simple cam device. I find this does most of my needs and has been very, very useful. But there are occasions when something of a bit more clout would be an advantage. So I've recently built its big brother. This certainly has the clout, but we are bordering on to the limits of a domestic supply here. It certainly makes the lights dim. It works on exactly the same principle as a cam device. This also has the added advantage of having a timer. That's also a help. I've yet to see a commercial one that matches its equal. Another useful item is this small metal cut-off saw. It's made from a 4.5 inch angle grinder with a 1mm cut-off disc. I find these excellent. They don't generate a lot of heat and they won't draw the temper if you're cutting tool steel. The whole thing is set on a table which is sprung loaded. This is set vertically to the table and the back stop 90 degrees to the blade. It makes a bit of noise, but it's very, very efficient. That's the quality of the finish. This is tool steel. Does anybody want to buy a hacksaw? The next item I'd like to show you is a disc sander. This is one I purchased at a boot sale. It was red rust, but it only cost a few pounds, and as you can see it's cleaned up very nicely. It's a 9-inch disc and the table tilts in every possible angle. But I find I very rarely use it like that. It's usually at 90 degrees to the disc. So I decided to make a woodworking version. And this is the woodworking version I made. It is a 12-inch disc mounted on a 1/2 horsepower motor. This looks larger, but the capacitor is inside as it's a flame-proof motor. You can buy these discs, but they're very expensive and that goes against the grain. So I've melted some aluminium in a beer can and made a billet which I put in the lathe and bored out the size of the shaft. I then drilled and tapped for set screws. The actual disc is a piece of nylon cutting up board, as is the table. and the table is set permanently at 90 degrees to the disc. It is remarkably efficient and remove an awful lot of wood very easily. I'll demonstrate. That's the sort of finish that you can get. It's really excellent. I stick the abrasive cloth on with a contact adhesive such as Fix-A-Fix, a thin layer on each the disc and the abrasive paper, allow it to get tacky and push and make contact. When it's worn out, I find the easiest way to remove it is with a hot air gun, and you'll find it'll peel off very easily. Something like this is also very worthwhile making.